The moment an avoidant partner comes back, you hold all the power they thought you would never gain. They do not return for no reason. They do not return by accident. And most importantly, they do not return because they have suddenly experienced a miraculous emotional awakening. They return because you shifted. There is a specific, invisible tectonic shift that happens in the dynamics of human attachment. It is a shift that occurs not when you scream, not when you demand, and not when you beg for the bare minimum. It happens in the quiet. It happens when the energy you used to pour into them, the worrying, the analyzing, the chasing is suddenly and completely redirected back into yourself. For months, or perhaps years, you were the engine of the relationship. You provided the warmth, the reassurance, and the pursuit. You were the constant. Your distance created a vacuum, a space they didn't expect. And now, they are the ones seeking connection. But this is not a video about how to get them back. If that is your goal, you are in the wrong place. This is a deep dive into the anatomy of the return. We are going to dissect why your silence is louder than any argument you've ever had, and why the version of you they left behind is no longer available to save them from themselves. We are exploring how you move from a place of anxious attachment, where you are begging to be chosen, to a fortress of self-respect, where you do the choosing. Welcome to the power of the invisible shift. Why is it that the moment you stop over-giving, over-explaining, and overextending, they reappear? Why does the text message always arrive the exact moment you finally feel okay without them? To understand this, we must look clinically into the fear system of the avoidant mind. You must understand the paradox of safety. An avoidant individual operates on a fundamental contradiction. They desire connection because they are human, but they fear engulfment because of their trauma. When you were present, chasing, and available, you represented engulfment. Your love, your needs, your perfectly reasonable desire for closeness felt like a wave threatening to drown them. So, they swam away. They sought the safety of the shore, believing that if they could just get enough distance, they would feel relieved. And initially, they did. They felt the relief of autonomy. But here is the truth about that relief: it is temporary. Relief is not happiness. It is just the absence of immediate pressure. When you finally stop chasing, you remove the pressure, but you also remove something else, something they took for granted, something they relied on to regulate their own nervous system, the supply. You were their emotional safety net. You were the certainty that no matter how far they swam, you would be waiting on the shore with a towel, ready to dry them off and warm them up. As long as you were suffering, pining, and waiting, they felt safe. Why? Because your pain was proof of their value. Your waiting was proof of their control. Avoidance comes back because their internal fear system gets activated not by your presence, but by your absence. They expected you to remain available forever. They expected that you would emotionally hold the line for both of you. They relied on you to be the keeper of the bond. But the moment you detach, the script flips. You didn't just detach from them. You detached from the version of yourself who accepted crumbs in place of connection. When that energy disappears, it forces even the most distant avoidant to confront a terrifying truth. You are not chasing them anymore. The shore is empty. The safety net is gone. The echo has stopped. And that silence, it becomes louder than every conversation you once begged to have. This is where the panic begins. Not the loud, frantic panic of the anxious attachment style, but the silent, creeping internal panic of the avoidant. They begin to wonder, have I gone too far? Have I actually lost control? This brings us to the hard truth about their return. It is not an act of love. It is an act of anxiety management. They are not returning to soothe your heart. They are returning to regulate their own internal chaos. They are checking if the door is still open, not because they want to come in and stay, but because they need to know they still can. Understanding this is the first step to reclaiming your power. Their return is not a compliment to you, it is a reaction to the void you created. When they do return, they are expecting a specific landscape. They are expecting the old you, and this is where the psychological shock occurs. To understand why this is so powerful, you have to understand that an avoidant does not just return to a person, they return to a dynamic. They are returning to the version of you who absorbed their distance. The empath who forgave before an apology was even offered. The soul that waited in the liminal space of uncertainty, believing that patience was a form of love. They rely on a subconscious script. They pull away. You chase. They return. You embrace. They offer crumbs. You feast. It is a predictable dance, and predictability is safe. But the moment you detach, you burn the script. They approach with uncertainty, expecting you to bridge the gap. They expect you to do the emotional heavy lifting, to smile, to ask questions, to make them feel comfortable after they chose to make you feel abandoned. But what they find instead is someone grounded, someone self-respecting, someone no longer willing to negotiate their worth. This creates a massive prediction error in their brain. They cannot reconcile the person they left, who was anxious, available, and pliable, with the person they are facing now, who is solid, clear, and unmovable. You see, the dynamic of an anxious avoidant trap relies on two participants. It relies on the runner and the chaser. If the chaser stops running, the game ends. The runner has nowhere to run to and nowhere to run from. They are forced to stand still, and standing still is the one thing an avoidant hates most, because in stillness, they must face themselves. When you respond with clarity instead of confusion, you disrupt their pattern. You are no longer performing. You are no longer explaining yourself to soften the blow for them. You are not here to reassure or rebuild the ground they repeatedly shattered. You have retired from the job of being their emotional rehabilitator. You are not here to fix them. You are not here to save them. You are just here, standing in your own reality. Your only job now is to stand in the strength you gained while they were gone, because the version of you they left behind is not the version they are meeting now. That difference is why the dynamic flips. They approach with uncertainty. You respond with clarity. They offer breadcrumbs. You offer boundaries. They seek comfort. You protect your peace. This is not about rejecting them out of anger. Anger is easy. Anger is reactive. This is about responding from the calm place you earned through healing. It is the difference between a reactive no and a calm no. One is a plea, the other is a law. You don't react, you observe. You don't chase, you choose. You don't collapse into the old pattern, you stand on the new one. And that is what terrifies them most. Not your rejection, but your evolution. Let's talk about the most powerful weapon in your arsenal. It isn't anger, it isn't revenge, it isn't ignoring them to get a reaction. It is radical neutrality. Nothing destabilizes an avoidant more than a person they assumed would always be emotionally available, suddenly becoming unbothered. Avoidants expect emotional intensity. They thrive on it, even if they claim to hate drama. Why? Because intensity, whether it's your love or your rage, confirms that they are the center of your world. If you are angry, they matter. If you are overjoyed, they matter. If you are crying, they matter. But if you are neutral, they are just a person who used to hold power, but now holds none. Indifference is the opposite of love. Not hate, indifference. Your neutral tone tells them everything. You are no longer the version they could emotionally escape from. When an avoidant returns, they subconsciously anticipate the old pattern, the one where your heart rushed to meet them halfway, where your excitement leaked through every text message, where your emotions filled the empty space their distance created. They expect the familiar emotional cushion that made their detachment feel safe. But when you respond with calm neutrality, the entire script collapses. Your silence becomes the message they never prepared for. Not angry silence, not cold silence, but composed silence. The kind that doesn't punish, but reveals. This is the moment they realize the emotional power you once handed to them so freely has returned to its rightful owner, you. Staying calm doesn't mean pretending. It means you genuinely don't feel the same internal urgency you once did. It means their return doesn't stir the anxiety it used to. It means you are not emotionally activated by their presence, their apology, or their attempt to reconnect. You see it for what it is: a cycle, a pattern, a reflex triggered by your absence. And instead of feeding it with emotion, you acknowledge it with clarity. When you respond without over-explaining, without over-giving, without bending yourself to make them comfortable, the avoidant feels something they rarely experience: accountability. Not the kind you force through confrontation, but the quiet kind that comes from no longer meeting their emotional avoidance with your emotional availability. They can no longer hide behind the excuse of being overwhelmed, because your calmness removes all overwhelm. They can no longer claim they pulled away because things were too intense, because your energy is grounded and balanced. Your neutrality acts as a mirror. When you stop projecting your emotions onto them, they are forced to look at their own reflection. And usually, they don't like what they see. They see their inconsistency. They see their fear. They see that they are the ones who ruined a good thing. Your neutrality puts the spotlight exactly where it belongs, on their inconsistency, not on your heart. And that is why neutrality is not just a defense, it is a victory. So, how do you execute this? How do you speak the language of high value? It is not just about what you say, it is about the subtext of who is in control. You must master the art of the short, composed response. But before you type a single word, you must master the art of the pause. When they reach out perhaps with a hey, or a miss you, or a random meme sent at 11 p.m., they are fishing. They are testing the waters to see if the hook is still in your mouth. They are looking for a dopamine hit, a quick reassurance that they still own real estate in your mind. Do not give it to them. If you reply instantly, you tell them I was waiting for you. If you reply hours later, simply because you were busy living your life, you tell them you are no longer a priority. 1. The mirroring technique, energy economics, reflect their energy. If they offer low effort, you offer low investment. This is the law of energy economics. You do not pay premium prices for bargain bin behavior. If they take hours to reply, you do not respond instantly. If they give vague messages, you do not overinterpret or ask for clarification. If they send a breadcrumb thinking of you, you do not bake them a loaf of bread. Oh my God, I miss you too. How are you? You simply like the message or reply with a polite, closed-ended, hope you're well. You hold your energy steady. You mirror, not mend. Avoidants are used to you over-functioning. They throw a pebble, you build a bridge. Stop building bridges.